Beneath the waves of the Strait of Hormuz lies a volatile secret poised to disrupt the global order. This narrow waterway, no wider than a river in places, controls nearly a fifth of the world's oil shipments. But behind the headlines of naval standoffs and shipping attacks, a calculated geopolitical chess game unfolds. In this video, we expose the hidden truths behind the Iran Strait of Hormuz crisis, revealing not only the physical challenges of this choke point, but also the clandestine strategies, economic stakes, and military maneuvers shaping one of the most tenuous flashpoints on the planet. If a single misstep occurs here, the ripple effect could send shockwaves through global energy markets and military alliances alike. Prepare to dive deep into the complexities few dare to discuss. To fully grasp the crisis, one must start with geography. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow passage connecting the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. If we zoom in here on the map, we see the strait measures roughly 21 nautical miles at its narrowest point. Shipping lanes for inbound and outbound vessels are constricted to barely 2 miles wide each. This creates an unavoidable choke point through which approximately 20% of the global seaborne oil trade transits daily, about 18 to 21 million barrels. The landmasses flanking the strait, Oman to the south and Iran to the north, form natural boundaries that funnel all maritime traffic. This physical constraint creates significant tactical leverage for any actor controlling or threatening this waterway. Terrain on the Iranian side features mountain ranges rising sharply from the coastline. This mountainous terrain not only offers Iran dominant observation points, but also allows for the deployment of coastal missile batteries and radars with sweeping coverage, effectively monitoring every vessel passing through. Militarily, this choke point's geography challenges rapid intervention by external powers due to constrained maneuvering space and high congestion. The strait's physical complexity is the root of its strategic significance and vulnerability. Iran's position north of the Strait of Hormuz grants it unrivaled strategic control over the passage which carries the lifeblood of global oil supply. This is not mere geography, it's geopolitics weaponized. If we zoom into Iran's military installations on the coastline, we observe hardened missile sites, anti-ship cruise missile batteries, and radar arrays specifically designed to monitor and, if necessary, threaten commercial and military traffic. The narrowness of the waterway means Iran can, with minimal resources, disrupt or even completely close the passage. This possibility underpins much of Tehran's bargaining power in regional and international diplomacy. Further, Iran's strategy employs asymmetric naval forces, fast attack craft, small submarines, and mine-laying capabilities that exploit the confined maritime environment. These assets challenge larger naval powers, effectively deterring U.S. and allied maritime freedom operations. Moreover, Iran has cultivated partnerships with proxy forces along Gulf coastlines. Their presence complicates any attempt at coalition intervention. The strait functions as a pressure valve Iran manipulates to respond to sanctions, military threats, or diplomatic isolation. To understand this crisis is to understand Iran's intent to leverage control over the arteries of global energy for strategic survival and influence assertion. The Strait of Hormuz's crucial role in energy economics cannot be overstated. Approximately 20% of all global seaborne oil passes through this maritime choke point daily, making it indispensable to global energy security. If we zoom in on global oil export maps, the flow from major Persian Gulf producers, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Iraq, Qatar, and Iran itself, depends largely on this route. Any disruption threatens widespread supply shortages and skyrocketing oil prices, shaking fragile global economies. Nearly 30% of all liquefied natural gas, LNG exports, also transit through the strait, emphasizing its dual energy role. Tehran is fully aware of this economic heartbeat beneath the waves. They calculate that even a temporary blockade or harassment of shipping could trigger oil price spikes, forcing global powers into concessions or prioritizing diplomatic engagement over military confrontation. For importing nations highly dependent on Gulf oil, China, Japan, South Korea, India, and Europe, the risk is existential. They have limited alternative routes, making their economies vulnerable to instability here. This economic dimension is the invisible engine powering the heightened military and diplomatic tensions around the strait. Beyond trade, the Strait of Hormuz is now a theater for an intense and often covert military contest. The United States and its allies maintain a significant naval presence in the area, including aircraft carriers, destroyers, and amphibious assault ships, projecting power and securing freedom of navigation. If we zoom into naval operation maps, we see established patrol patterns and sea control zones aimed at countering Iranian asymmetric tactics. Iran responds with its own strategies, deploying fast attack craft swarming in numbers, deploying sophisticated anti-ship missiles from concealed coastal batteries, and laying naval mines in strategic segments of the strait. Cyber warfare targeting navigation and communications further complicates this sparse maritime battlefield. Notably, repeated incidents of mine attacks on commercial and military vessels and captures of foreign tankers indicate a dangerously escalating tit-for-tat dynamic. Each episode is calibrated to send political messages without triggering all-out conflict. Crew kidnappings, drone strikes, and electronic jamming are components of what amounts to a shadow war conducted with stealth and precision. This military interplay beneath the surface is as crucial as any headline. An ongoing struggle to control the strait's maritime corridors without crossing thresholds that would spiral into open warfare. The crisis is intensified by the involvement of proxy forces and hidden alliances around the Persian Gulf. Iran leverages regional militias and allied groups in Yemen, Iraq, and Syria to extend its strategic depth and complicate any potential multinational response. If we zoom in on regional influence maps, we see how Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps coordinates with Houthi rebels in Yemen, who have launched missile and drone attacks against shipping in the Red Sea and attempted to move threats toward the Gulf waters. These proxy conflicts serve as asymmetric pressure points, distracting adversaries and escalating risks without requiring direct Iranian engagement. Tehran also cultivates relationships with Gulf-based Shiite militias, which can harass maritime and land targets. This network forms an invisible security belt around Iranian borders. Meanwhile, external powers back different Gulf states with weapons and intelligence, creating a web of competing interests just beyond the visible horizon. The Strait of Hormuz crisis is thus not isolated, but acts as a focal point where global, regional, and local conflicts intersect, amplifying its danger and unpredictability. Aware of the strait's vulnerability, global powers and suppliers have sought alternative routes and strategies to reduce dependency on this choke point. If we zoom in on pipeline maps, we recognize the growing significance of the Abu Dhabi crude oil pipeline and the East-West pipeline in Saudi Arabia, capable of rerouting shipments to the Red Sea, bypassing Hormuz. Efforts to develop the Gulf of Oman and Arabian Sea ports aim to facilitate direct exports, avoiding the narrow channel. Additionally, India, China, and Russia are investing in multimodal corridors involving rail and pipeline projects through Iran, Pakistan, and Central Asia to diversify energy supplies. Despite these efforts, capacity constraints and geopolitical obstacles remain pressing challenges. Furthermore, the global shift towards renewables and LNG is gradual and insufficient in the near term to diminish the strait's strategic value. This ongoing dependency means that while the world hedges its energy bets, the Strait of Hormuz remains the single point through which the fate of global energy security passes. Despite numerous sanctions, talks, and military posturing, the Iran Strait of Hormuz crisis remains unresolved, entrenched in a diplomatic stalemate. If we zoom out to diplomatic summits and agreements timelines, the patterns are clear. Sanctions elicit threats, dialogue is fragile and infrequent. Military incidents escalate tension without resolving underlying distrust. Iran faces existential threats to its regime and economy, while US and Gulf allies aim to contain Tehran's influence without triggering full conflict. This equilibrium is precariously balanced on brinkmanship and selective provocations. International organizations call for freedom of navigation and de-escalation, but enforceability is limited. Any miscalculation, accidental or deliberate, could trigger a large-scale confrontation. Furthermore, the growing involvement of global powers like China and Russia adds complexity, as their strategic interests diverge from Western alliances. The stalemate hinges on whether rational calculation prevails over ideological and internal pressures in Tehran and Washington alike. The Strait of Hormuz, thus, remains a tinderbox with a lit fuse whose ignition could reshape the Middle East and global security architecture. Looking ahead, the next decade could see the Strait of Hormuz evolve from a static choke point to a dynamic flashpoint with unpredictable consequences. Iran is likely to expand its asymmetric naval capabilities and deepen proxy networks